Moving on to item number 8, which is the approval of additions to the 10-year plan. We're joined this morning by David Orlow. Good morning, David.
Good morning, members. Again, for the record, David Orlow, Program Manager here at HGAC. As we spoke with you last month, we're here to talk to you about opportunities to add some additional projects to the 10-year plan, an opportunity made possible by the voter approval of Proposition 7. As you recall, when we talked about approving the 10-year plan last month, we did consider the approval of Proposition 7 within that plan using the framework provided by you all. So that includes the scoring and ranking process with adopted criteria, project readiness and eligibility of those projects for the available funds, when those funds might be available, along with the guidance you had previously provided to us for the allocation of our core federal programs. As a reminder, looking at the approved 10-year plan, the first block at the top includes the allocation guidance from you all, that 75 to 82% allocation for mobility, 9 to 13% for alternative modes, 9 to 13% for air quality, and roughly 1% for planning. If you'll note, looking at all of the funding categories, including Proposition 1s, we do run a balance for the adopted 10-year plan with Proposition 7. That's that blue column, and it's $143 million at the bottom. I will remind you, the 10-year plan includes complete funding for 5 years and 50% funding for the remaining 5 years. So we, even with this balance, that does not include the 50% for the out 5 years, which we have estimated at this point about $2.5 billion for future decision making. Okay. So given that Proposition 7 has passed, we discussed with the TIP subcommittee, TAC, and you all the opportunity to come back to you with some opportunities to fund some additional projects, particularly in the alternative modes category. As a reminder, the adopted plan funds all of the mobility projects that were consistent with the RTP plan goals that we felt were ready for action at this time. What we're proposing today would not change that in any way. We would change the funding source on some of the mobility projects from a federal source to a proposition source, and that would allow us to spend federal funds on alternative mode projects, which, of course, are not eligible under the proposition programs. I'm going to walk through the proposal that has received TIP subcommittee and TAC approval and recommendation to you all, and then ask for your questions. Just as a highlight, here are the 7 mobility projects that we could change the funding source on. And these are all ATS improvements within state highway corridors, and the funds are in the 2018 through 2021 timeframe. In total, they aggregate up to about $56 million of funds as programmed, so year of expenditure in those years. So generally speaking, that's the constraint that we would place on any additional project selections that we would carry forward. The first opportunity that this presents is accelerating some of the alternative mode projects that are in the adopted 10-year plan. In particular, there's 2 here to highlight for you. The City of Houston's Memorial to San Felipe hike and bike connection. This is on the west side of Memorial Park and the Center Point and Railroad corridor to provide access, major north-south access that doesn't currently exist in that area. As well as the TxDOT and City of League City FM 518 project. This is one of those transportation enhancement projects. If you recall, last year we had to terminate a number of projects based on the availability of funds and their agreement with TxDOT. This will allow us to refund that activity. And in fact, we'd be able to accelerate it from where it's shown in the current 10-year plan by about 5 years. So below that second black bar are the additional projects that we would be able to provide funding for. I'll note that this list is in your packet, along with the other projects that were not funded under the 10-year plan last month as well. This allows us to go most of the way through the remaining list, and it's really kind of likewise on the mobility side, gets us to the point at which we've got funded projects that are consistent with our RTP goals. I'll highlight just a couple of the projects for you. Again, the Townsend Park and Ride projects, we've got a couple of projects here that are keyed off of connections to transit, as well as the International Management District Bikeways project, which again is another TE project that had been terminated due to schedule issues with TxDOT, and we'd be able to refund that project as well. We'd also be able to support Fort Bend County's transit operations and administration facility. They would likely move forward with construction in the next year, and reimbursement programmed, as I mentioned, funds available in 2018 and 2020 when those funds would be available. With that, I'll pause and see if anybody has any questions for us to respond to at this time.
Any questions to staff?
Yep. Was just going to highlight for you all, because we are talking about dedicating some additional federal funds to these activities. How does that affect the guidance that you all have given to us? When we look at that, if we consider your commitment to incident management and Houston TransStar, along with the mobility projects selected in the 10-year plan, we'd be about 74% of those core federal programs, so just underneath that 75% guidance. So just a small tweak to our typical practice with you all. So.
Okay, I just need, do I need a motion to approve the plan as presented by staff? Motion? Anyone? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.